everyone, welcome to Science Buffs, the ultimate podcast for STEM enthusiasts. I'm Sam,
And I'm Abby.
and today we're going to be talking about a really cool STEM topic. Did you have a good week, Abs? Do you have any updates?
Well, yes, there are some things. First of all, a very quick follow-up to my very long Delta story. Oh, I never mentioned it was Delta
It's
last
okay
week.
now.
It's okay. We got refunded like double what I thought. Like a very good refund. They made it all right. Their customer service was fantastic. So you can
Good.
fly Delta.
Good, because I
But
just booked
yes.
a trip on Delta
Oh,
to New
good.
York City.
Yeah, I've heard just great things. So, it was just a blip. It's fine. It all got resolved. The other weekend thing that happened was it was Halloween. So, as of recording, it's November 1st. So, Halloween was yesterday. And it was my son's first Halloween. And we dressed him up as a little chicken.
It
And I
was the
was,
cutest thing I've ever seen. And you left out, you dressed up as a farmer.
yes, I fit into my overalls, which was a big milestone post
Yay!
pregnancy. So I was a farmer. I was in overalls and a flannel, and it was very cute. So I was like, tending to my little chicken because my HOA will not let us have any chickens. So this was kind of a stand against the HOA, So it was very cute. And then we
You
went
really threw it
over,
in their face.
I know, I was like, take that. And and then my niece trick-or-treated, so we went all together and she was a cow, which was super cute. And we did hit like five houses and came home and it was really cold. So it was a
It was
success.
really cold. We got
Yeah.
like no trick-or-treaters at
Really?
all.
I feel like
Mm-mm.
your neighborhood would be popping.
Yeah,
We didn't get
no,
any
not
either.
really. I think it's because it was cold.
Yeah, probably.
I've also heard a theory that people are doing more trunk or treating because it's like
Mm,
safer, I guess. You can see your kid, but I don't know. I don't have kids, so
it's
I
such a
wouldn't know.
bummer. It probably is safer, but it's a little sad what the
I
world has come
know.
to.
It's like it's dying.
I know. Did you do anything fun for this weekend or week?
No, I really haven't done a whole lot, but I am prepping to go to Japan in December. And
So
so
exciting.
yeah, so I'm super excited, but also nervous to figure out their transit system. That's probably what's giving me the most anxiety because we don't live in a place where we use public transportation very frequently, so I have to figure that out and in a different language. So
Yeah, the
that's
language thing
been,
will be interesting. I wonder how much is in English, or
yeah. I looked
we'll
up a
see.
YouTube video for the specific airport I'm flying into, and it looks like a lot of their signs are in English, so I
Okay,
should be okay. But fun
perfect.
fact, I did martial arts as a kid, so I know how to count in Japanese. That's about it.
That's hilarious because I also did martial arts and we probably did a separate one because I know how to count to 10 in Korean.
Oh my gosh,
And that's
that
all the words
is
I know in
hilarious.
Korean. So,
That's
well, that's
super
good.
funny.
Okay, I have a little bit of a discussion question
Okay,
because it being November 1st, we just, right before recording, we just decorated our whole house for Christmas. We are fully Christmased out in our household. So, are you a November 1st Christmas goer or after Thanksgiving?
I've done
Or,
both.
okay.
I think it depends on the year. So, like, I'm advocating for decorating early this year since I'm going to be gone for 2 weeks leading up to Christmas. So, I'm
Okay, see,
losing key
that's good.
Christmas time. But I feel like the one thing is I did do it November 1st last year, and I got a little out of the Christmas spirit by the time Christmas came around. I know. I think I got a little tired of the songs, and I was like, okay, I'm ready
Right,
to
you
move
do have
on.
to kind of ration it early,
Yeah,
like one Christmas thing a day.
yeah.
Can't listen to all the songs at once. Although I did actually start listening to songs mid-October this year,
Oh
like
my
one a day,
goodness.
because I don't know, it just felt like it was needed, like a little Christmas joy. So,
It's been a tough year. I mean, I
yeah.
don't really blame you. I even think I asked you. I said, I is it too early to listen to Christmas music? Which I found a happy medium, which your husband actually introduced to me, which is these YouTube videos where you just watch like a burning fireplace and then it has very
Yes.
soft, cozy jazz music in the background. So you're getting that holiday vibe, but you're not committing to the Christmas jam, you
Yeah, I
know?
totally agree. I totally agree. It's like you can drink a
But I,
hot
yeah,
chocolate, be cozy, hint of Christmas, but not too much.
yeah.
I
So
agree.
I think
Well,
that's where it's at.
that'll be our poll question for the week. I mean, unless there's another debate that arises halfway through our episode, but we'll put a poll on the Spotify episode about when the proper time to decorate for Christmas is, because I'm a solid November 1st. So
And people have opinions on this. I've seen it on the
yeah, I
internet.
get roasted by like half my family and some strangers.
You're divided. You're divided inside your family. I thought
I
you guys would
know.
all do the same thing.
No, no, there's definitely some among the group that they're not about it before Thanksgiving. So
That's funny.
every year I just have to withstand the criticism. And we go strong November 1st.
I do have to share a funny story about you because I came over to your house and it looked like a fall explosion. And I know your husband does it, Jason does it. And you said that he said, everyone says it's a lot, but nobody says they like it. I'm like, it's probably the same for Christmas.
Okay, the Christmas ones I like a lot more because, it's like it's very just greenery, which I love. For
Yeah.
fall, I love muted tones, like
Yeah.
all the muted oranges. He likes bright orange. So, I let him, go nuts. I'm like, yeah, let's have some fun. I'm good with it. But if it were me, I would do a little bit more muted, but it's fine. We're gonna have
It
fun.
makes him happy.
Yeah, so that's his thing. But anyway, all right. That's all for my weekend and week updates.
All right. Well, should we dive in?
Yes.
You have a huge glass of water. It looks like a jug. It looks like she's drinking out of a fishbowl. You can't
Okay,
see.
this is actually I got my big mug is in the wash, so I this is my sourdough jar, one of them, and I swapped them out, and this is my second one, so I'm just really thirsty right now. Okay,
Hilarious.
okay,
Okay, sorry,
I'm
I got
ready.
distracted. All right, three clues. Your
Okay.
first clue is I posted about this on Instagram about 2 weeks ago
Oh gosh. Okay.
on our
A
Science
flight,
Buffs
a
Instagram.
certain flight. Um,
No.
okay. No.
All right, do you want your second hint?
Yes.
Okay, it has to do with optics. The
Contact
silence.
lens glasses. What have you posted? Um, a prism of
A
light.
pr- no.
Okay.
Okay, the last one, it has to do with looking at the night sky.
Oh, a telescope. The
Yes.
Hubble. Is it a specific
Yeah,
one? Hubble?
it's just how telescopes work.
Oh, yes. Okay, this is gonna
Yes.
be good.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about telescopes. And
Yay.
the reason, well, first of all, I posted about it and I can reshare the story, but my mom and I got my dad a telescope from Costco actually
That's
for
awesome.
Christmas last year. And it was like a hot item. My mom, it was like Mission Impossible trying to go get one. She's like, go
Oh,
get
I
one today.
bet.
You have to go to this Costco. And this like older woman was like grabbing one out from under
Oh
me. And I was like,
gosh.
this one's mine. So like they were supposedly like really good for the price. So we
Dang.
set it up with my dad and I took a video through the lens of like the moon.
Yes, I
So
do remember
that's
that
why
now.
yeah, and then I realized that I don't really understand how telescopes work, which is kind of embarrassing because we took like a physics class where we learned about optics, but I didn't
It's
really fully
always
understand.
kind of too general though. Like they're just like, oh, the
Yeah,
light gets magnified. Like I want to know details. So this is good.
exactly. All right. So, what do you know about telescopes?
Okay. What I think I know is like there's two lenses, I guess maybe more, that are varying sizes. So like they're something about focal length and
So
basically
many.
basically looking at through two at the right distance makes a clear picture magnified. I mean, that's like the most generic description ever, but
That's not bad. That's not
that's
bad.
about
All
it.
right. We'll straighten you out here.
Okay,
All
great.
right.
Focal length.
All right. So a telescope is a tool that astronomers use to see objects far away. So I think a lot of people are like, duh. But um, let's see. At a high level, they work by using curved mirrors or glasses, which are known as lenses, to gather and focus light from the sky. And the very first telescopes focused light by using pieces of curved clear glass and called lenses, like your eyeglass lenses.
Okay.
Um, and these mirrors or lenses within a telescope are called optics. And really, really powerful telescopes, the large ones you see in an observatory, can see things really far away that are very dim. To do that, um, mirrors or lenses have to be really large. So I'm sure you guys have seen pictures of observatories and humongous telescopes, and that's why they take up so much room. Um, the bigger the mirror or the lens, the more light that the telescope can gather. And then light is then concentrated in the shape of the optics, and that is the light that we see when we look through the telescope. Um, to do this properly, the optics of the telescope have to be almost perfect. So scratches, spots, or anything on the mirror or lens that's not perfect can make it really hard to get an image at all, or an image that your eye can read essentially. Um, so a telescope that is made with lenses is called a refracting telescope, so using glass. A lens, just like your eyeglass, bends light passing through it. In an eyeglass, essentially, this makes things less blurry, but in a telescope, it makes things far away seem closer. So think about people that might have especially poor eyesight. They have really, really thick lenses.
Right.
The same is true for telescopes. If you want to see
Hmm.
really far away, you need a really powerful, large, thick lens.
And
Unfortunately,
when
oh,
they're
sorry, go ahead.
big, when they're like the bigger the lens, does it have to be further away from like the other lens that it's getting concentrated into, or like the eyepiece? Because I feel like the ones that are huge have like such a huge end, but they're super long. Does that have
That's a
any
good point.
correlation?
We can maybe talk about that when I talk about like their geometry, because I think that would
Okay.
make sense.
Okay, cool.
That's a good question. Um, yeah, because so the problem with these refracting telescopes that use lenses is that they require obviously huge lens,
Hmm.
a lot of glass is super heavy.
Right.
So it's really hard to design something to support it. And then also they scratch very easily and they're really hard to like clean and maintain. So
I didn't
usually
even think about
won't.
the cleaning of the glass on those
Yeah,
telescopes at
so
observatories.
yeah. So most of the observatories and the large things you see now use reflecting telescopes because they use mirrors instead of
Okay,
glass. So
interesting.
why do mirrors work better? So it can be very thin. A big mirror doesn't have to be thicker like a lens does to get the
Okay,
same effect. And light is concentrated by bouncing off the mirror. We'll talk about that a little bit more.
okay,
Um, so the mirror just has to be the right shape. It doesn't have to be so massive.
okay. That makes sense.
And it's much easier to manufacture a near perfect mirror than it is to manufacture a near perfect lens.
Ah,
Just think about how much it costs to get custom prescription lenses,
right.
just for your eyes. Like
Yeah,
imagine that
that's a
in
good
an
point.
observatory. Yeah. And then they emphasize this when I was doing my research in multiple places, but since mirrors are one-sided, they're way easier to clean and polish. On a lens, you have to clean and
Oh,
polish both sides, and
oh
it's
yeah.
hard, especially if one side's being supported. Um, it's
Oh,
hard to clean both sides of a lens. Um,
wow.
One problem though with mirrors is that if you think about it, mirrors flip the image that you're looking at. The
Right.
solution is simple. Is simple. You use multiple mirrors to flip
Okay.
the image
I
back.
was gonna say, flip it back.
Flip it back. So that's like the one problem with mirrors, but it's easily resolved.
When you're talking
Um,
about that, sorry, this is like a little side note, but do you remember those glasses that were sold in like the early 2000s where you would like lay down and you would have your book like on your stomach and you'd be laying flat and you could look up and they would have a mirror so you could see
oh my
like
gosh,
straight
yes.
ahead.
I think that people still buy those because I've seen those recently as
Really?
like an ad. Yeah.
That like it's like all I'm thinking about when you're
Oh,
saying the mirror.
I know where I've seen that because you and I both do cross stitching and embroidery. I've
Yes.
seen people on like embroidery Instagram use those because it hurts to put your head down for so long.
That makes a
So you
lot
can
of
look
sense,
straight ahead.
actually. That's pretty smart.
We'll
You
have to
should
find
get
a picture
those.
and post it to stories. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, we're going to go into the history of the telescope because I find it very interesting.
Perfect.
Um, so, according to the Library of Congress, evidence that the principles of the telescope were known as early as the late 16th century. But the first telescope was that we have evidence of was created in the Netherlands in 1608. Um, Spectacle makers Hans Lippershey and Zacharias Janssen and Jacob Metatius independently
Nailed it.
created telescopes. Nailed it. Um,
They independently
so
created them?
yeah, they had at this around the same time independently created
What are the
telescopes.
odds of that? That's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of people have a understanding and think that Galilei was the first person to create a telescope, but he was
Hmm,
not. But we will talk
okay.
about more him
Okay.
in a second. But actually, oh yeah, early telescopes before being used for the sky were primarily used for what they called earth-bound observations, such as like surveying military tactics, which makes sense.
Wow, sure.
Um, but in 1564-ish, Galileo, wait, I made that. No. So they had his birthday on. This is his birth year. 1564, I think, is when he was
Oh, is
born.
when he was born.
Oh,
Okay.
yes, but it was 1609-ish. It's hard when it's been so long,
Right.
but he was part of a group of astronomers that decided to use telescopes to look at the sky.
Okay.
So he developed his own telescope and then demonstrated his telescope to other telescope enthusiasts in Venice. Which I've been to Venice, by the way. It's very beautiful.
That's cool. Did you see any telescopes there?
I didn't, no.
Darn.
But so his demonstration of the telescope earned him a lifetime of lectureship, which is essentially how he got his like being known for his telescope is because he had the loudest voice about it,
Oh,
basically.
okay. That makes sense.
So his name propagated through history. A lot of things said he's a great example of self-promoting. If you
He has
promote
a great
yourself enough,
marketing
even if you're
strategy.
not, yeah, even if you're not the first or the best, you will succeed eventually. Um, so after his first success, he tried to or worked on refining the instrument. Um, and he was able to make things look 3 times larger than they did with the naked eye initially. And he kept refining it. And then he rapidly published findings. And
Okay.
his primary findings, the first things he kind of realized with his telescope by looking at the sky, is that the moon is not a perfect sphere. Um, he thought and it had been thought for a long time that the moon was a perfect sphere. But by looking through his telescope, he was essentially able to see craters on the moon, which people hadn't previously been able to see. I did wonder
Well,
about this because I feel like if you look at the moon with your naked eye and you have decent eyesight, you can kind of see the shadows on the moon and realize it's not a perfect sphere.
yeah, like the
But
like the man on the moon thing, I think
yeah,
I presume was before the telescope, but maybe not.
yeah, I don't know. Um, but yeah, the other one, the other one was that Jupiter has its own moons. He discovered three of the largest moons on Jupiter, and the implications of this discovery were part of what pushed Galileo to argue that the sun was the center of our galaxy. Well, it wasn't a galaxy at that point, but the cosmos, the heavens. Um, and then the last biggest thing that came out of his findings was he spotted a spotted rotating sun. So he discovered imperfections in the sun as well, like sunspots. And then he also discovered that the sun also rotated.
You
By
know,
monitoring the spots, he was able to figure out how the sun
oh, that's
rotated.
cool.
Yeah,
How does it say anything about how he was able to like look
look at the
directly
sun.
at the sun?
Yeah, it didn't. And I also wondered the same thing.
Because
But I wonder if he figured out you could put like a filter on it.
yeah,
I think
he
that's what
must
they
have, or
normally
else
do,
I
right?
think he'd be blind. So
And he never published again. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, his findings were over after he looked at the sun.
Yeah, it did not say, but I was just thinking about that too.
That's funny.
But
Maybe we'll
yeah.
put it in the stories when we figure out.
So after Galileo came Isaac Newton in 1672, and he made a reflecting telescope and he demonstrated it to the Royal Society. One thing to note is that Galileo's telescope was a refractor, and apart from various other defects, it produced false color. So things you were looking at were not necessarily their actual color, um, which means a lens does not refract all wavelengths equally. So Newton decided to collect the light with a
Oh,
curved mirror. Thus, he had the first reflecting telescope.
so oh, that's crazy. So it basically because the lens wasn't perfect, it right that it was just because they couldn't manufacture like perfect glass. What was the color thing?
Yeah, so well, and glass doesn't reflect all wavelengths the
Oh,
same
he tried to
way
do a
as a mirror.
reflection with glass.
Yeah. So
Interesting. Okay.
Newton realized that, sorry, my notes went back to the top. Newton realized that a lens does not refract all these wavelengths equally.
Okay.
And
I
so
gotcha.
he figured out that he could reflect the light with a mirror.
Okay.
And so he had the first
Perfect.
reflecting telescope, which is what we pretty much see today because it's lighter and cheaper and works just as good.
Perfect. So is that the ones that they have in space? I'm assuming because it's so much lighter, is all mirror based ones.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about those a little bit.
Yay.
But I did just want to, it is kind of hard to like visually explain the telescopes, but I was just going to walk through their geometry a little bit, but I'll post their pictures of them
Perfect.
on stories or on our Instagram so you can understand a bit better. But back to a refractor. So a refractor has the lens, the glass lens. So it's made up of a long tube containing lenses, and the objective lens is the very, very front, like you were talking
Okay.
about. It's the very front of the telescope. In other words, it's where the light comes in.
Okay.
And modern refractors have a second tube that contains the eyepiece or the ocular lens. And the eyepiece is exactly what it sounds like. It's where you look into the telescope. Um, and you can adjust the ocular lens or the eyepiece to focus the image.
When you say
Um,
adjust it, are you just adjusting the distance away
yes,
from?
you're adjusting the way that I understand it. You're adjusting the focal point,
Right.
so like
Okay.
where you're looking. So you're not actually like moving it in and out. You're just like adjusting, I think, the focus on the lens, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It's kind of confusing, but
I
um
think that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah. And like I said, I'll post pictures so it can like make a little bit more sense. But and then what we were talking about today is a classical Newtonian reflector, which is a long tube, and instead of the lens, it has mirrors. And remember that an objective lens is at the very end of the tube where the light comes in, but in contrast, the mirror is at the opposite end of the tube. So the light comes into the telescope, and the mirror is essentially at the bottom of the
Okay.
tube. And the objective mirror at the bottom of the tube is not flat, it's curved. It's a concave mirror. Reflectors have a second mirror. So remember how I said the image is flipped? So it has
Yes.
a second mirror that the light then reflects off of. And then the second mirror, by the way, is a flat mirror.
Okay.
And then it's at a 45-degree angle from the direction the light is reflected on at that mirror at the very end of the tube, the
Okay.
objective lens. And then the eyepiece is at the side of the tube. So your light comes in, goes to the bottom of the tube where the mirror is, reflects back up to the secondary mirror, and then the light reflects out the eyepiece so you can see the image.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. It's crazy they fit
Yeah.
all that inside the tube. And it all works like with enough room for the images to actually, you know, do that. I feel like telescopes would have to be huge for all of that to fit inside, but
I know.
they get it down pretty small.
One, I watched a YouTube video about this a little bit earlier. It's hard to explain geometries if you don't have visuals, but they were explaining how like optics and telescopes are essentially like a bucket of water. So like if you're collecting a rain bucket, obviously the bigger the bucket, the more water you're going to collect. And
Hmm.
your pupils in your eye are like the bucket of water, and then your telescope is like a bucket of water collecting all that light. And then you have like a funnel where you could dump the water into. That makes it easier for you to see.
Okay.
I hope that's a good way of explaining it. You're
That's
like, I don't know.
I'm like, okay, bucket of water. Just kidding. I think it makes sense. Funnel and
Okay.
buckets.
What are some really well-known telescopes that you know about?
The Hubble. And
Yes.
then there's a new one
Yes.
that is called something. I forget what it's called.
Yes, we will get to that
But
one.
it's
The
like way
James
more
Webb
power.
Case.
Yes, and it's the James Webb, right? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
like way more powerful than the Hubble.
Yes. So we'll talk. You picked the two I'm going to talk about, so that's good.
Yay!
So most of us have likely seen pictures of the Hubble, of images from the Hubble Space Telescope because it was pretty groundbreaking for its time. But in the 1970s, NASA and the European Space Agency took up the idea of a 3-meter telescope. And as they said, funding began to flow, which we know is important,
Yeah,
in
very.
1977. And it was decided to name the telescope after Edwin Powell Hubble, who had essentially discovered that the universe was expanding in the 1920s.
Okay.
Although the Hubble Space Telescope was downsized to 2.4 meters, I don't know why I said although, but the project started to attract significant attention because of its groundbreaking optics.
Like, I know we
Um,
lost 0.6 meters, but please keep giving us the money.
it's still important.
It's still cool.
All right, I'm quizzing you.
Oh
It uses
gosh.
mirrors. What type of telescope is it?
A reflection
Yes, a reflecting telescope.
reflecting telescope.
So it has what they call a precision ground mirror. It was finished in 1981, and the assembly of the entire spacecraft was completed in 1985.
Okay.
The plan called for a launch on NASA's space shuttle in 1986, but it was delayed. Why do you think it was delayed?
86, was that the Challenger?
Yes.
Oof.
The scheduled launch date slipped because of the Challenger disaster. So the launch date slipped for an entire year um, because of the delay of the shuttle program. And so Hubble was finally launched in 1990, and the tension built up as it said, as astronomers examined the first images through Hubble's eyes, which we'll
I think
post the
I
first images.
wasn't there an issue?
Yes. Yes, that's very next
This
step.
is
Good
this
job.
makes me scary.
So initially, it was determined that Hubble's mirror had had a serious flaw in it. A focusing defect prevented Hubble from taking sharp images. So the mirror edge was too flat by a mere 50th 50 of the width of a human hair. over the
Really?
next yeah, over the next months, scientists and engineers from NASA and ESA, the European Space Agency, worked together, came up with a superb that's that's what it says um corrective optics package and plan that would restore Hubble to its glory.
That is crazy. You know, our CU professor was on the Hubble repair mission.
Yes, I
Do you have
do
that
remember
talking?
that.
Do you have
I
that
forget.
in your notes?
I do not. I
I
should
think it
have
was
because I remember that.
Jim Voss, right?
Yes.
Is that his name?
I think so because there was two astronauts and I had a class with him, the one that was
Yes.
went up on the Hubble
We'll have to
repair
fact
missions.
check his name, but he was our professor.
Yes. Yeah. He is a pretty cool guy.
Yeah.
So a crew of astronauts carried out the repairs necessary to restore the telescope to its intended and designed level of performance during they called them Hubble servicing missions, starting in December 1993. So they did 4 subsequent servicing missions.
Whoa, that's a lot, actually.
Yeah. They were super complex. And again, it says they captured the attention of astronomers and the public because the repairs were to agree. Captured the attention to such a level that no other shuttle missions have really gotten the same attention for. And they meticulously planned these and succeeded. And now we have these crystal clear images from the Hubble telescope.
That is great. So did they just replace the whole mirror, or did they shave it down or something? I guess they wouldn't be able
That's
to
actually
shave
a
it
really
down.
good question. That's a good question. I'll have to look that up. And I'll put it in stories, but I don't think
Also,
they could replace a 2.4 meter mirror unless they like built it in segments. I think it was like they
yeah,
repaired
that's
certain
so true.
pieces of it.
I also heard, and maybe this is just wrong and it's like some other mission I'm thinking of, but I heard it was like a metrics to imperial mix up. Did you read anything about
Interesting.
that? I might be thinking of something different.
No, well, I think it's like a satellite or something, or some kind of spacecraft crashed into Mars, I think, because of that, or
Okay,
the moon.
yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, there's been a
I
couple
don't think it
like
was this one,
conversion errors, but maybe, yeah, maybe it wasn't the telescope. So,
which reminds me of that SNL skit that we should post.
wait, which one?
You sent me a clip from it the other day about it's about the Revolutionary War and how they decided to convert from and
Yeah.
we're gonna make our own unit system. That
They're
makes
like,
no sense.
okay, should we use like kilometers to meters? And they're like, no. Okay, well, how many, like, we should use feet. Okay, how many feet are going to be in a mile? 5,280, of course. An easy number that everyone will remember.
Yeah, we're gonna have to post
We'll
this.
post
Another
it for
Keenan
sure.
Thompson classic.
Too
In
good.
it. Um okay. How many observations or pictures do you think Hubble has taken in its lifetime? 30
Oh, 30
years.
years. Okay. Are they just taking them? Well, I don't really know anything about the data, like how they get the pictures back down. I don't know if like one picture a day is even is like normal, or if it's okay. I'm gonna say that's not normal. Let's say 30 years. I'll say 300 pictures,
No.
like
One
10,000.
1.5 million.
Oh,
I don't know if it's
awesome.
like pictures. It says observations, but I'm assuming that means pictures.
Okay, I was close.
But with 1.5 million observations, Hubble has still looked at less than 1/10 of 1% of the sky.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say of them, of the pictures that you sent
Oh,
back. Yeah, that okay. I think you would go crazy as like an astronomer, like a true astronomer that was looking at Hubble telescopes and thinking of how big the universe is every day.
yeah. Well, that's like, remember our math professors in college said that, told us about the people that were trying to understand infinity and they went insane.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think there's another option, honestly. If I think about it for like 2 minutes, I start feeling a little panicky. But
Yeah. Don't think about it. Don't think about the
God,
expansion of the universe. Hubble, he's the guy that I don't
that's
know.
crazy. That is crazy that it's that little.
I
So is
know.
it
It's
I
crazy.
mean, is it like turning all the time so they're getting all I mean, I guess it's like in orbit, right?
Yes.
So they control where they're looking, or is it just as it orbits, they're just keep taking
I'm
pictures?
assuming they would be able to have some like control about where it's pointing.
Right.
But that's a good question. Using reaction wheels. Remember that?
I'm sure they have a ton of reaction wheels on there. You are
Yeah,
correct.
but it's interesting. I don't know if they're limited or anything because of I mean it's almost 30 years old, so and they don't have the
Definitely.
shuttle anymore to do any servicing missions right now. So,
Right, so
well, yeah,
do they have like an end of life prediction for Hubble?
not really. So that's the fun thing. Hubble has its own Instagram,
Oh
and it's
wow.
actually really cool. I did a deep dive into its Instagram today.
That's awesome.
It's still taking observations, and I think it's kind of cool because it has like a personality, you know?
Yeah, that's cute actually.
Like the Mars rovers like have a personality. I think
Yeah,
that Hubble has a personality, and yeah, they don't know how long it's gonna last for. So he's still going.
that's
Um,
cool. That's a long time.
yeah, it's kind of interesting because I think what we're gonna go into now is the James Webb Space Telescope, which, like you said, a lot of people think is like a replacement for Hubble, which I guess it kind of is, but a lot of articles are very adamant about the fact that they know they complement each other,
Okay, that's good
because
to know.
they look at different things. They have like different capabilities, but they're
Okay.
complementary. So I'll go through this. But in 1996, a large committee formally recommended that NASA develop a telescope that would view the sky in infrared light and the wavelength band that enables astronomers to see through dust and gas clouds and extends our vision farther into space and back in time. So it would have a mirror with a diameter of more than 4 meters. So more than
Wow,
Hubble's
that's crazy.
2.6. um,
But the money was just
and
flowing.
the money was flowing. People were stoked. And NASA agreed in 1997 to fund this, and it took them a while to refine and understand how they were even going to tackle this. And in 2002, they selected teams to start building the instruments. And it was also in 2002 formally named the James Webb Space Telescope, and it's named James Webb after the NASA administrator who led the development of the Apollo program.
That's cool.
Construction began in 2004, and by 2011, all 18 mirror segments. So if you haven't seen the James Webb Space Telescope, it looks really cool. It's a like honeycomb structure of mirrors. Um, were finished in 2011, and it was launched on Christmas Day in 2021. So
That's
fairly
cool.
recently.
In
And
2021?
yeah,
Whoa.
yeah,
That
and
yeah, that's very recent.
yeah. And then on the evening of July 2022, the president unveiled the first full color image from the James Webb Space Telescope. And it was a near infrared light view of the galaxy cluster SMACS. I'm not an astronomer, so I don't know if I'm supposed to say SMACS or I'm supposed to spell it out, but it's 0723.
We saw Smacks in its full glory.
And it's the deepest and sharpest image taken of the distant universe to date.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. So just to wrap up comparisons between the two. So, whereas the James Webb Space Telescope detects infrared wavelengths, making it ideal for observing distant galaxies, Hubble studies the universe mostly using other wavelengths, including high energy UV, so ultraviolet light, emitted from marvels such as exploding stars. I love astronomers' use of adjectives. Like when they
Yeah.
write these, they're very like
Superb.
marvels, superb.
Marvel.
um, and astronomers want to essentially maximize their investment because Hubble costs a lot of money.
Right. Right.
Hubble costs like the total with like its repairs and everything about $16 billion.
Oh my gosh.
So lots of
Yeah,
money.
those missions, I'm sure were not cheap. They didn't
Yeah.
sound cheap. That's crazy.
So to maximize their investment, they got to
And that
take
was
them
like
all
in
in.
the 80s. 16, or is that in
Yes.
today's money? 16 billion?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I'm
The
sure it was
article I
like
think
the
was
actual
from,
cost. It was probably the actual cost, like
yeah,
back then, which is
that's a lot of
crazy.
money. That's like 16 times what Taylor Swift makes now.
Yeah. That's like 16 Taylor Swift net worths. That's hilarious. Wow.
Okay.
That's
And that's
cool.
all I have.
Wow. That's a good topic. I liked
Yes.
that a lot.
Oh, well, one thing I wanted to say, which I meant to say at the beginning, was if you're interested in telescopes, when I was growing up, my mom's brother, so my uncle, he is super into telescopes. He's actually building his own observatory in the
Oh, that's
mountains right
cool.
now.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
he used to take me to this thing called I forget what they called it here, but they're like space nights or space clubs, and they're actually pretty common. We have them in Denver, but basically a bunch of people bring their own personal telescopes, set them up, and then you just wander around and look at everybody's telescopes. The one I went to was at an observatory, so you could also go in and look at like one of the massive telescopes. But
That's cool.
the YouTube video I watched today reminded me of these. And he was like, astronomers would love to talk to you about their telescopes and what they're looking at. So he's like, don't be shy, just go. And it is really cool because they usually have it set on a bunch of different things. Like everybody's looking at something different. So
Wow. We should go to
yeah,
one of those.
we
Do a little
should.
vlog on the YouTube channel
Yes,
of us
it's really
going.
fun. And then they usually serve like hot chocolate and stuff in the winter inside the observatory. It's really fun.
That sounds really fun. And people who are going to those, are like, yeah, passionate about astronomy. That's cool.
Yeah.
I like
Yep.
when people are excited about their hobby.
Yeah. So buy your Costco telescope and go to one of
Honestly,
those.
I might be I might be interested.
Honestly, like, and I think a lot of people get overwhelmed because they think that they're really complicated, but I don't know, I was one of those people too. Like I never wanted to buy a telescope because I thought that, but my dad set it up the other day and it was actually kind of pretty simple to navigate to find like the moon and things like that if as a
Right.
starter. So
That's really cool. Well,
yeah.
good. That was a great topic. Good
Thank
job,
you.
Sam. I liked it.
Yay.
Yay. Well, I hope you enjoyed our podcast and make sure to subscribe on any platform that you're listening to this on. That sentence didn't make sense. Subscribe and follow along and leave a review if you're feeling really generous. We would love a review if you're liking the podcast. So that's all for this week, and we will see you next week for another episode. Bye,
Thanks
everyone.
guys. Bye.
Bye.